Jaya Rama Rama Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Jaya Gopi Jana Giridharadhari Jashodanandanam Jashodanandanam Brajanaranjana Jamunatiravarachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jashodanandanam Brajanaranjana Jamunatiravarachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Rama Jaya Radha Madhava Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Gauranga Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Good morning, everyone. Hare Krishna. It's been a while. So today we'll be reading from the 5th canto, 1st chapter, and we'll be covering text 14 today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudirayet
Tato Jayamudirayet.
Nasta Preshwa Bhadreshu
Nastaprayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavate Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki.
Okay, text 14. Yadvachitantyam guna karma dhammabhi
Yadvachitantyam gunakarmadhamhi.
Sudustararvatsa vayang suyojitaha
Sudushararvat savayam suyogitaha.
Sarve vahamo balamishwaraya
Sarvevamo Bandishvaraya.
Protana siva dvipade chatushpada
Pratana Siva Vivade Chanuspara.
Yadvachitantyam guna karma dhammabhi
Yadvachitanyam gunakarmadhamhi.
Sudustare vatsavayam suyojitaha
Sudusharaya Vasavayam Suyavitaha.
Sarve vahamo balamishwaraya
Sarvevamo Bandishvaraya.
Protana siva dvipade chatushpada
Pratana Siva Vivade Chanuspara.
Yadvachitantyam guna karma dhammabhi
Yadvachitanyam gunakarmadhamhi.
Sudustare vatsavayam suyojitaha
Sudusharaya Vasavayam Suyogitaha.
Sarve vahamo balamishwaraya
Sarvevamo Bandishvaraya.
Protana siva dvipade chatushpada
Pratana Siva Vivade Chanuspara.
Bolo.
Yadvachitanyam gunakarmadhamhi
Yadvachitanyam gunakarmadhamhi.
Sudustararvatsavayam suyojitaha
Sudushararvat savayam suyojitaha.
Sarve vahamo bhavaneshwaraya
Sarve vahamo balamishwaraya
Protana siva dvipade chatuspada
Protana siva dvipade chatushpada
Yadvachitanyam gunakarmadhamhi
Yadvachitanyam gunakarmadhamhi.
Sudustararvatsavayam suyojitaha
Sudustarvatsavayam suyojitaha
Sarvevahamo balimishwaraya
Sarvevahamo Bandishvaraya.
Siva dvipade chatuspada
Protana siva dvipade chatushpada Yadvachitanyam gunakarmadhamhi
Sudustaraya Vasavayam Suyojita
Sarve Vamo Valamishvaraya Vrotana Siva Dvipade Chatushpada
Yadvachitanyam gunakarma dhamave
Yadvachitatya Gunakarma
Sudustarar vatsavayam suyojita Sarve vamo paramishvaraya Protana Shiva Dvipade Chatushpada
Yadvachitantyam gunakarma dhammavihi
Yadvachitatya Gunakarma Dhammavi
Sudustaravatsavayam suyojitaha
Sudustaraya Vatsavayam Suyojitaha
Sarve Vamo Balamishvaraya
Sarve Vamo Valamishvaraya
Protana Shiva Dvipade Chatushpada Yadvachitantyam gunakarma dhamave Sudustarar vatsavayam suyojita Sarve vamo paramishvaraya
Pradana Siva Dvipade Chatushpada. Okay, synonyms. Yad,
Yad
of whom?
of whom
Vachi,
Vachi
in the form of Vedic instruction.
in the form of Vedic instruction
Tantyam,
Tantyam
to a long rope.
to a long rope
Guna,
Guna
of quality.
of quality
Karma,
Karma
and work.
and work
Namabihi,
Dhamani
by the ropes.
by the rope
Sudustrahi, very difficult to avoid.
Very difficult to avoid
Vatsa,
Vatsa
my dear boys.
my dear boy
Vayam,
Vayam
we.
we
Suyojitaha,
Suyojita
are engaged.
Ardi
Sarve,
Sarve
all.
all
Vahamaha,
Bahama
carry out.
Yarya
Balim,
Balim
orders to please him.
order to please
Ishwaraya,
Ishwaraya
unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead
Rotaha,
Prema
being bound.
being bound
Nasi,
Nasi
in the nose.
in the nose
Iva,
Yiva
like.
like
Dvipade,
Dvipade
to the two-legged driver.
two-legged driver
Chatupadaha,
Jatala
the four-legged foals. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada A.C. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear boy, all of us are bound by the Vedic injunctions to the divisions of Varnashrama according to our qualities and work. These divisions are difficult to avoid because they are scientifically arranged. We must therefore carry out our duties of Varnashrama Dharma, like bulls obliged to move according to the direction of a driver pulling on ropes knotted to their noses. Please repeat after me. My dear boy,
my dear boy
all of us are bound
all of us are bound
by the Vedic injunctions
by the Vedic injunctions
to the divisions of Varnashrama
the divisions of our ashrama
according to our qualities and work.
according to our qualities and work.
These divisions are difficult to avoid
These divisions are difficult to avoid
because they are scientifically arranged.
because they are scientifically arranged.
We must therefore
We must therefore
carry out our duties of Varnashrama Dharma,
carry out our duties of our ashrama dharma,
like bulls obliged to move
like bulls obliged to move
according to the direction of a driver,
according to the direction of the driver,
pulling on ropes knotted to their noses.
pulling on ropes knotted to their noses.
Purport. In this verse, the words tantyam guna karma dhamavhi are very important. We each get a body according to our association with the gunas, the qualities or modes of material nature, and we act accordingly. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the four orders of the social system, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, are arranged according to guna and karma, their qualities and work. There is some controversy about this, however, because some say that since one receives a body according to the guna and karma of his past life, it is one's birth that determines his social status. Others say, however, that one's birth according to the guna and karma of his past life is not the essential consideration, since one can change his guna and karma even in this life. Thus, they say that the four divisions of the social order, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, should be arranged according to the guna and karma of this life. This version is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam by Narada Muni. While instructing Maharaj Yudhishthira about the symptoms of guna and karma, Narada Muni said that these symptoms must govern the division of society. In other words, if a person born in the family of a Brahmana has the symptoms of a Shudra, he should be designated as a Shudra. Similarly, if a Shudra has Brahminical qualities, he should be designated a Brahmana. The Varnashrama system is scientific. Therefore, if we accept the divisions of Varna and Ashrama according to the Vedic injunctions, our lives will be successful. Unless the human society is thus divided and arranged, it cannot be perfect. As stated in the Vishnu Purana 389, Varnashrama charavata purushena parapuman Vishnu aradhyate pantha nanyatattoshakarnam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashrama. There is no other way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must be situated in the institution of the four Varnas and Ashramas. All of human society is meant to worship Lord Vishnu. At the present moment, however, human society does not know that this is the ultimate goal or perfection of life. Therefore, instead of worshiping Lord Vishnu, people have been educated to worship matter. According to the direction of modern society, men think they can advance in civilization by manipulating matter to build skyscrapers, big roads, automobiles, and so on. Such civilization must certainly be called materialistic because its people do not know the goal of life. The goal of life is to reach Vishnu. But instead of reaching Vishnu, people are bewildered by the external manifestation of the material energy. Therefore, progress in material advancement is blind, and the leaders of such material advancement are also blind. They are leading their followers in the wrong way. It is best, therefore, to accept the injunctions of the Vedas, which are mentioned in this verse as Yadvachi. In accordance with those injunctions, everyone should find out whether he is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, and should thus be educated accordingly. Then his life will be successful. Otherwise, all of human society will be confused. If human society is divided scientifically according to Varna and Ashrama, and if the Vedic directions are followed, one's life, regardless of his position, will be successful. It is not that Brahmanas will be elevated to the transcendental platform, but not the Shudras. And if the Vedic injunctions are followed, all of them, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras will be elevated to the transcendental platform, and their lives will be successful. The injunction in the Vedas are explicit directions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The example cited in this verse is that bulls tied by ropes in their nostrils move according to the direction of the driver. Similarly, if we move according to the instructions of the Vedas, the perfect paths for our lives will be set. Otherwise, if we do not move in that way but act according to our whimsical ideas, our lives will be spoiled by confusion and will end in despair. Actually, because people at the present moment are not following the instructions of the Vedas, they are confused. We must therefore accept the instruction by Lord Brahma to Priyavrata as the factual scientific direction leading to the success of life. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 16:23. Yashastra vidhim utsrijya vartate kamakaratah न सा सिद्धिम अवाप्नोति न सुखं न parangatiम. If we do not live according to the injunctions of Shastras, the Vedas, we shall never achieve success in life, to say nothing of happiness or elevation to the higher statuses of living. Om Gyana Taram Timrandhasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshu Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Chakapate Gopasha Gopaka Kantara Kanta Namostate Tapta Kachana Gorangi Radhe Vindavaneshwari Vishpanu Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpadrubhya Kripa Sindhubi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nivsesha Shunya Varipasha Tirishtarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so today's verse once more. My dear boy, all of us are bound by the vague injunctions to the divisions of Varnashrama according to our qualities and work. These divisions are difficult to avoid because they are scientifically arranged. We must therefore carry out our duties of Varnashrama Dharma, like bulls obliged to move according to the direction of a driver pulling on ropes knotted to their noses. Okay, so just to start off, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not very qualified for this class because I'm not very educated on Varnashrama. However, I'll give an attempt at this and also build off of that. So naturally, when we look at any society, we see that there's some form of Varnashrama, or at least Varnas. Naturally, we're going to find that there's a learned class of men. We're going to find that there's an administrative class of men, a mercantile class of men, or a labor class of men. This is just naturally within society, as confirmed by Krishna himself. Chaturvarnyang maya srishtang guna karma vibhagashaha. According to three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. So this is a system that's been set by Krishna naturally. So naturally, we're going to find this throughout the world. And this system is set up by one's guna and karma, by their modes that they're in, their quality, and their work, not by our birth. As also confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 7:11-35. If one shows the symptoms of being a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, as described above, even if he has appeared in a different class, he should be accepted according to those symptoms of classification. So oftentimes we see that there's some groups of people that think if you're born a certain way, then you stay that way. If you're born a Shudra, you stay a Shudra, even though you may not act like a Shudra or a Chandala. Yeah, if you're born a Brahmana and you're breaking all the regs and all that, you're still a Brahmana in their eyes because you're born Brahmana. But we see here that actually that is not the case. It is according to one's guna and karma. How do you carry yourself? What is your natural tendency within this life, not just your birth? So even though in Kali Yuga, technically everyone's considered Shudra, we'll still find that these groups all are still present, although not to their full potential that they once were previously necessarily. Prabhupada once mentioned that because there is no cultural education in the age of Kali, everyone is spiritually untrained and everyone is therefore to be considered Shudra. Ashudha Shudra Kalpa Hi Brahmana Kali Sambhavaha. So, how can we recognize when someone is showing symptoms of one of these classes? How can we classify? Because Prabhupada mentions within today's purport that we should actually find out what we are, where we fit in as a Brahma, a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, or Shudra. And this is given like a nice little brief description within the Bhagavad Gita itself in the 18th chapter. Krishna mentions that peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness, these are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work. So we can see that if someone's really showing these qualities, then likely they're more Brahminical than they would be in the others. And then we got heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. Farming, cow protection, and business are the natural work for the Vaishyas. And for the Shudras, there are labor and service to others. So a little brief description where we could, even just for ourselves, see where we fit in. So the whole point of the system is so that as a society, we can thrive and at what we're good at, and so that we can flow with one another, because all these groups are needed for a society to properly function. We need a class to be like the brain that's going to give proper instructions. We need an administrative class that keeps order within society. We need a class of men that deals with business and agriculture and cow protection. And we also need laborers who are going to be able to, provide housing, roads, whatever the case may be. We need those people. So it helps us to flow as a society. But not only that, but also so that we could grow spiritually. Everyone has to work in one form or another in this material world. And a society needs all these people to have this nice flow. And by doing so, and by offering the fruits of our labor to Krishna instead of ourselves, we can please him and grow spiritually, even while doing this work in this material world. Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita in the same chapter, chapter 18, that by following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now, please hear from me how this can be done. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all pervading, a man can attain perfection through performing his own work. So obviously, this doesn't mean that if you have a sinful work, this is something to do. Everything is covered over by some type of sin, but you shouldn't really be working at a slaughterhouse or at like a bar or something like that, obviously. But by performing whatever you're working at in that position and offering that to Krishna, you can purify your work and yourself and society as by working together. So ultimately, this is a system that the Lord has set so that society may run smoothly and grow spiritually. And the spiritual aspect is very key. And I found this one verse in the 11th canto, 5th chapter, 3rd verse. It's a little heavy, but I mean, the message is through, so don't take it too personal. But if any of the members of the 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams fail to worship or intentionally disrespect this personality of Godhead, who is the source of their creation, they will fall down from their position into a hellish state of life. A little heavy, but the point is that it's not just for you to have some nice job and work and thrive in your work. The whole purpose is so that in that you also can grow spiritually, because that's the whole point of life, is to grow spiritually. And if you're not doing that, you're missing the whole point of this human birth. So zooming out a bit from just this varnashram conception, because as I said, I'm not very qualified. I don't know too much about varnashram to really go more in depth into that. I just want to look at it from a different perspective that kind of builds off of this, and that is that in truth, we all have our own natural tendencies and way of being. Being true to yourself and walking in that truth is where you'll thrive and do amazing things. Denying who you naturally are, your natural way of being, because you think that others will like you more, they'll accept you more, it's what you should be, and so forth. What you think how you'll be seen more important. In any case, you're only really dimming your own light and your own potential. There's that, I won't go too into that, but there's this story that we've heard, especially from Bhakti Sundar Maharaj, about the eagle and the chicken. The eagle, when he hatched, he grew up with chickens. So his whole life, he thought he was a chicken. And the eagle comes flying over one day, and he sees this huge eagle roaming around with these chickens. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, you should be up there flying high. And all this time, this little eagle had been looking in the sky like, wow, that looks so amazing. He gets to fly so freely. How lucky he is. So when this eagle was mentioning, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I'm with my family. And he says like, no, actually, you're an eagle. You belong up there. And he's like, I'm a chicken. What are you talking about? I don't belong up there. And so he kind of played with this thought. And eventually, he realized that he wasn't a chicken after some time, that he was actually an eagle. And he was able to fulfill his dream of flying in the sky. So oftentimes in social setting, we want to be like everyone else around us. Naturally, we kind of admire one another. We value each other's views and all that. So we kind of want to fit into that. But the dangerous side of that is oftentimes we cut ourselves short and try to be something or someone that we're not. We're afraid what others might think. Well, if I do this, even though I really would like to, maybe others won't look at me so well. Sometimes when one goes to college or get a job, one's parents want them to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, like all these things that make money, a dentist, whatever it is. But sometimes, the kid just wants to be an artist, or he wants to, that's just his natural tendencies. He wants to do something else that would actually make him happy. And oftentimes, not all the time, some people are really brave and they'll step forward, but oftentimes they may not fulfill that dream of theirs of being an artist or doing this or being a singer, whatever it may be, because they want to make everyone else happy. Everyone wants me to be like this, so I'm going to be what they want me to be. Even though they might not be very good at it, and they'd be much better doing what they would be hoping to do. So when you know yourself, you can be honest with yourself about what you struggle with and what you do well. That's one of the benefits of actually being yourself, is you know where you lack and you know what you're good at. You know what you can improve on, and things that, maybe you're not going to necessarily overcome. I might have medical issues, so maybe I can't do this. But, I'm lacking in this area in my own character, and I know I could build on that. And I know I'm good at this, so I know I could grow in that and provide that as a service. So most of the time, for most people, we try to be someone we're not. We think we had to be the most skilled, the most learned, the most compassionate, the most unique, the most humble. And all this becomes a trip of the false ego of, I have to fit into this, I have to do this. And we shove ourselves into shoes that don't fit us properly and try walking in them, which, if you've ever tried to wear shoes that were too small or too big, it's not very comfortable. Or if they're just not the right shape for your foot, you end up hurting your feet. Maybe you get blisters or pain, and sometimes that carries up your leg, and you got pain in your knees, your hip, your back. So, it's better that we be Cinderella instead of her sisters. Cinderella, she wore the glass slipper that fit perfectly, whereas her sisters with their big feet were trying to shove their feet in, and it's all crumped up in the shoe. It's better to find the shoe that fits you perfectly. So eventually we'll have to come to the point that we realize, actually, I'm not that humble. I'm not that skilled. I'm not that learned, and so many other things. And the truth is that in reality, we're not any of these things that we think we are. Krishna provides these things, and anything that we have is given to him. Given to us, such as our abilities and our intelligence, like he has mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. So we usually take these things that are given to us and we start identifying with them. And this is where ahankara comes in. Just like Kirtaneshwar Prabhu was mentioning the other day, ahankara, when you break it down, comes from two words. Aham, meaning I, and kara, the doer. It means that I think I'm the doer. This is your false ego. So because I've been given these abilities, I was gifted my intelligence, I was gifted my skills, I was gifted my ability to be humble in this kind of circumstance or in that circumstance, or whatever the case may be. It was all given to you. You didn't do a single thing. All this is given to you, and by Krishna's mercy and grace. So we're not the doers. We're not humble. We're none of these things that we're trying to make our identity. And it's a humbling experience when we start to think like that. But in any way, when we come to this kind of realization, we can be at peace and realize what we're not. And we can start to realize who we are and what we're capable of. When you don't know who you are, you don't know what to do. And that's oftentimes the case for many people in society, especially younger generations. They get caught up in trying to be what everyone else wants them to be so often. And they never get a chance to really know who they are. Even on a material level, they don't know who they are or what they like. Oftentimes they go with what everyone else likes and what everyone else thinks that they should be. And when this happens, we see that when they go to college, if they go to college, or when they graduate from high school, whatever the case may be, they don't quite know what they want to do in life. You know, they know they want to make money and have fun, but they don't know what kind of job they want. They don't know what kind of place they want to go to at school, what kind of education they want, because they haven't really had a chance to know who they are. Because oftentimes as a society, we force, or at least there's this connotation that you have to fit into these different boxes. And we don't allow for people to really get to know themselves or teach our children, our friends that, you know, it's okay to be yourself. It's okay that you're not going to necessarily be what everyone wants you to be. As long as you're doing good and you're pushing forward in life, being your true self, that's all that really matters. And doing that, being able to offer that to Krishna, you're set. Actually, it becomes a great strength knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. You know, not everyone's going to accept us, and, you know, I'm not necessarily going to be the coolest person. I'm not going to be the most of anything. But with that being said, Krishna created everybody with their own uniqueness, because in that own uniqueness, you have something that you bring to the table to serve to Krishna that nobody else can serve him, and no one else could give him pleasure in that way. There's something that you are able to do that no other living entity can do. That's quite amazing, because when you consider how many living entities there are, that's so crazy to think of. Because, I mean, even if we just look at ourselves, let alone the whole world, we look at ourselves, you know, I know that my soul's in this body, but within this body, it has a lot of different parts, a lot of different organs. And within those organs, there's so many different living organisms, which each have a soul. So we're talking within just one body, there's like millions of living entities within this body. Not just me who's within the body, but there's also living entities throughout the whole entire body. So then when you look at that and you think of, well, you know, that also goes to other people's bodies and other planets' bodies. We're talking millions and billions and trillions and ridiculous number, and that's just one planet. And then you think of other planets, that's just one universe. And then there's like so many universes. So even though there's so many living entities out there, there's still something that you bring to the table that no one else can, and no one else can help Krishna be pleased in such a way that you can. So we shouldn't be so set on trying to shove ourselves into these different boxes and label ourselves a certain way. You know, we do need to be able to function in society. We should, you know, figure out what that is and how can we serve in that way. But you also should find out what you're personally good at. Who are you? What are you like? What can you bring to the table? How can you serve? You know, some people, like Parameshwar Prabhu, you know, he's been with us. Some people are like him, are super unique. At his age, he's living in a van, going through some severe austerities, distributing books all the time. And he's set on doing sadhana all day, no nonsense, all the time. He has his own unique service. There's practically no one else that serves at that level in his own unique way. And that goes for everyone. Everyone has their own unique service that they can provide that no one else can. So the main basis of today's class is, you know, going back to Varnashram for a second, is that one, it's not really built off of your birth. It's more about how you come about. I mean, there's other verses that I included that I haven't even got to yet, and I'll include them now. This is in the Bhari Bhakti Vilas 5.5 from Vishnu Yamala. It stated that the Brahmanas born in the age of Kali are merely Shudras. Their so-called Vedic path of karma is polluted and cannot purify them. They can only be purified by following the path of Aganas or Pancharatrika Vidhi. And it's also stated in the Hari Bhakti Vilas 2.12 from the Tattva Sangara that just as bell metal is transformed into gold by alchemy, a common man is transformed into a twice-born Brahmana by Diksha from a bona fide spiritual master. So one can be born to a specific class of family, but still have qualities of another class and could be classified as another class. Interestingly enough, I also found out that in the Mahabharata Shanti Parva 118.10, say that Bhrigu had said that previously there was only one Varna because everyone was born of Brahma, everyone was a Brahmana. However, later on, different castes were categorized according to their activities. That was just an interesting part I wanted to include in there. It's more about your qualities and who you are as a person, as opposed to anything on how you can function within a society. You know, Varnashrama was set by Krishna, given by Krishna, so that we can function as a whole. Because you could just go out and be in the Himalayas and do your thing like that, but spiritual advancement like that is oftentimes very difficult and very long. But if you're within a society and performing bhakti yoga, no matter what class you're in, you can grow spiritually. One who's a Shudra could become a great Vaishnava. One who's a Brahmana but doesn't follow through with Brahminical qualities, or even just being a Vaishnava, it's useless. But main point of the whole class is finding out what you're unique at, who you really are, and being able to provide that as a service. Because as I mentioned, the whole point of even Varnashram and Dharma, let alone just human life in general, is that we're supposed to please Krishna. The Varnashram system is set to please Krishna. We're supposed to please Krishna. So if you find out what you're good at, what you struggle with, what your tendencies are, you can better serve Krishna knowing these things. This becomes a strength, not a weakness, of walking in your true identity instead of trying to be something you're not. Because Krishna also says that it's better to perform your own duty, although it may be imperfect, than to follow another's duty perfectly. For following another's path is very dangerous. So learn what you're good at, follow that path, and use that as a service to Krishna. If you're a good singer, you could provide that for Krishna. If you're good at doing Pujari Seva, you could provide that. If you're good at book distribution, you could do that. There's so many ways, unlimited ways that Krishna can be served, and you have a unique way that you can serve him. And that's something that you had to find out for yourself. Anyways, I think I will end there if there's any questions or comments. Yes, Ketanishwar Prabhu.
Thank you. Very nice, positive, encouraging, well thought out class.
There's some points in a question I want to make. Nice, made the point, if we do our Varnashram, we don't become attached to Krishna, then it's useless. And Sudha Goswami says, Dharma swanushtita pumsam vishvakshina katashu yaha notpariyad yatira tim shrame vakevalam. He says that whatever you do in human society, if you don't have this rati for the message of vishvakshina for God, then it's shrame vakevalam, it's useless. That point is nice. And he mentioned that, we don't want to do our Varnashram work. We don't want to do something that's not in our dharma, so to speak. That's kind of on one level. But then at the same time, simultaneously, we hear verses like Tvaktva Swadharmam Charanam Bhujam Harir Bhajana Pakvota Patetato Yadi. Narada Muni is saying that even if one is Tvaktva Swadharma, he abandons his Swadharma, his Varnashram position, and engages in the service of the Lord, but fails. There's no loss. But if one does his Varnashram perfectly, but doesn't develop that service to the Lord, there's no gain. Then Krishna, of course, says, Sarva Dharman Pridyaja. He's saying, abandon all Dharma. Because the whole Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaking of Dharma, but there's these points where he makes time and time again where he's saying, actually, it doesn't matter. You should abandon your Varnashram. And Arjuna specifically, don't fight because you're a Kshatriya, but fight because of me. So then the question is arisen that, many of us may have had this experience that we feel we are inclined in one direction, but the Guru is asking us to do something else. So the proper thing to do would be to follow the Guru or to follow our Varnashram position or our inclination. So that's my question.
Oh, those are good points, which I didn't really think to add in this class because I prepared late last night and this morning for this class because I was busy. But yeah, it's definitely important that we remember that the ultimate thing is serving Krishna, even if it's at the cost of abandoning everything. As in your question directly, that's personally speaking, although I'm not very learned, I would say follow your Guru, because your Guru's words are supposed to be Krishna's words being said to you through him. And by following his orders, one can attain perfection, and all Vedic wisdom is revealed.
Because a Vaishnava is above the Varnashram position, always. And so the idea is that we do Varnashram exists for purification. So people are purifying themselves through the Varnashram system via karma yoga. It's to please the Lord, like that verse in the Vishnu Purana. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, rejects that and calls for a higher dharma. But then the idea is that the bhakti yoga process will purify us. And Prabhupada gives in one purport, he says that if someone's a sannyasi but takes sannyas prematurely, if a Mayavadi takes sannyas prematurely or an impersonalist, then there's really no hope for them because that propensity to act in a certain way is still there. And so they're going to have to fall down. But a Vaishnava who takes sannyas prematurely, even if he does, because he's engaging fully in hearing and chanting, then that'll purify him faster than any Varnashram process will. So therefore, Krishna kind of stresses that point time and time again. He says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmaram yudhya maya pratamano budhir mam eva shashasham shaya. He says that one should perform the prescribed duty while at the same time remembering me in the form of Krishna. With your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you'll come to me. So those are all points. And then the second question is, this is brought up once when I was in Bhakti Vaibhav. Padmanabhan Prabhu was kind of getting the class roused and asking some kind of provocative questions, but he was saying, how do we institute Varnashram? And then, he kind of laughed at us, all of our answers, because basically he said, how do we avoid the idea that Brahmanas are going to feel better than others? Because we see even in this temple, we've even seen, it's not like we all know there are devotees who feel like, I've heard devotees personally say about other devotees, they're just a Sudra. I've heard that personally, and we probably all might know who said that, but we've heard that personally, that that devotee is a Sudra, but that devotee may do a lot of service, important service. And so it's almost an immediate reaction for the conditioned soul to start feeling I'm better than another when you have a position. And they did that study. It's like the Monopoly game where, you've seen that? No, they did a study where they had two people play Monopoly, but they had one group start off with more money and one group start off with less. And it was just showing how the one who had more money automatically started feeling themselves better, even though it was a game. So this is like human conditioning. So it seems that if we try to institute any type of Varnashram, that would take place. And it's kind of obviously there's no right or wrong answer. It's just kind of a question to think about, and you can give your thoughts.
Yeah, no, that was, I figured something like that would probably be in discussion. Yeah, instituting it is a whole other thing. So honestly, most of us aren't really capable of walking in any of these classes to their full potential besides maybe Shudra. Like, to be a qualified Brahmana in like the real sense of Brahmana or a Kshatriya or Vaishya, there's some high standards when you really look at it. And to like be able to carry that out 24/7, it's not really practical for most of us, especially if you live in some places like here in the US where, most people that are not living at a temple and they're working outside, so much different jobs you have to take on, and who's to really say that this one's really like this or like that, or so to really apply it to its fullest sense isn't really practical in one sense. I mean, maybe there's someone that could do so, and maybe that is the right thing to do. I'm not really qualified to say such a thing, but you can at least carry some of those things. Naturally, some people are going to be more into one thing than the other, and naturally, if you use that, like the small description I gave of like the Brahmana Kshatriyas and all that, if you just at least carry out what you're more naturally good at and you use that as a service, I mean, you're not going to be the perfect Brahmana. You're not going to be perfect Vaishya. All of us are Shudras, practically speaking. And avoiding ourselves getting puffed up, I mean, that's really only going to be through Krishna consciousness, really, because you're always going to find yourself thinking I'm better or I'm lower, based off of the modes of nature. If you're in the modes of nature, even in the mode of goodness, you're going to think yourself better.
Yeah, best thing I can think of that I've heard, I heard it said maybe by Prakash Maharaj, or
It might have been Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, but Shiva Maharaj, one of those two, said, like the concept, I think, for ISKCON instituting any type of thing like that is, like the sadhana, that whether one is a Sudra or wherever one's at, if we can get people engaged in the chanting of the holy name, that's the thing that really purifies us. And so, we find that even some, we find great devotees, that are chanting the holy name, but they just have a tendency to like to do outdoor work, or,
Yeah.
they're not Sudras, they're beyond that. But we, like our Janeshwars, always helping so many ways, and then, there are devotees who may be more inclined to doing puja work and giving classes and so forth. So it's I think the main thing relies on, once again, spreading that, the chanting of the holy name. Kirtan had a question or a comment first.
Yeah, meet people where they're at. Engage them with what they're good at.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
First thing that I realized that whenever we hear about Sudra, we have negative conception or understanding. Actually, Sudras are really sincere people within the category of Varnasrama, and they are faithfully serving the higher classes in society. So the understanding that we have about Sudra, first it has to be corrected, and we need to understand what real Sudra means. And also in Krishna consciousness, we are neither perfect Brahmana, nor Kshatriya, nor Sudra, nor Vaishya. We are not following any Varna or Asrama perfectly, and we do not have any qualification for that. We somehow engage in devotional service with whatever nature we have, that really transcend our positioning, status in society, and elevate us beyond this, material Varnasrama system. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also brought that idea that Naham Vipranata Narapati Napi Sudro Na Vaishyo. So that conception is really important in our life. We are neither Brahmana. I may be born in a Brahmana, or I may have Brahman initiation, but I do not have qualification of a Brahmana, even in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
So
he said that we have there's that verse, the Namadeya Shravanana Kirtananya Pravanabhya Sthana Sadhya Samdaya Bhagavan Darshana. Whether if we chant the holy name, you're beyond the Brahmana.
or we're qualified to perform Vedic yajnas, but the point is that we may be qualified on the purity level, but we're not necessarily qualified on the level of knowing how to do things. And so no one really knows how to act in that proper way. Very few people can even do a fire yajna. Kirtan yajna can, but
What I do is not perfect, even it is not perfect at all. There's always the traditional Brahmana will not agree with what I do. But if you have sincerity in your heart that you want to offer to the Lord if you have a desire to offer to the Lord, if you want to please Him, then He will accept it, even if it is imperfect. That's the goal.
like the verse by Shukracharya.
Yeah. So
No, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, we do definitely give Shuddha a negative connotation most of the time. Majority of the time, Shuddhas are looked down upon, but yeah, they're serving everyone. And in one sense, that's great devotional service right there. You're a servant of all the people. And yeah, find out what you're good at, working that.
because of the wrong understanding of Sudra, if I am natural Sudra, I am very difficult to accept that I am Sudra. This is what happened because of abuse to the word Sudra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another definition of Sudra too.
One who laments.
Unnecessarily.
Yeah, what was I going to say? I mean, even just practically speaking for Brahmana, oftentimes we like say, like, I'm a Brahmana or I'm born Brahmana, but like, oftentimes Brahmanas were able to like do a yajna that brought animals back to life or gave them a new body, but like, that's bad in this age because practically speaking, no one knows how to do that. None of us are qualified to do that. So if we can't do that, then like, are we?
Brought the idea that some people believe Brahmana by birth, and there are so many Shastra reference that someone maybe born Sudra can be Brahmin, so it's all by quality and what is that.
The more we identify with it, the more we become bewildered.
It's still bodily identification.
So the goal is Ediratim Bhakti. Not par Ediratim, that is the key point.
Mamekam Sharanam Braja, make me number one, make Krishna number one regardless. Anyways,
Thank you so much.
Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, Prabhus. All right.